Over the past few days, there's been some significant developments with James Gunn's Superman, but you probably wouldn't know about them if you simply read articles from the mainstream media. That's because they're always so eager to present this movie as some type of huge, unprecedented success for Warner Brothers and James Gunn, even though there's enough information out there to suggest otherwise. And that's really the main reason I started doing these videos where I attempt to give more objective coverage about Superman, highlighting real issues with its box office performance. Now, I understand that some people enjoyed this movie, and that's perfectly fine, but that alone doesn't measure how successful a movie is or isn't. What really matters is the bottom line, and as one of the first people to report that James Gunn's Superman was technically a box office flop, I stand by my assessment, and today I'm going to present you with some new receipts to support it. Receipts that, in my opinion, are very revealing. Now, if you've been watching my videos and enjoying them, and you haven't yet liked and subscribed, if it's not too much trouble, please take a second to do that now, as it would really help an independent news channel like myself.
Do it.
If you've been online over the past week, you're likely to have seen a lot of mainstream media articles complimenting James Gunn, again, especially as Superman achieved, quote-unquote, an important milestone, which is that it has somehow managed to crack $600 million at the worldwide box office. And after doing a bit of digging online, I was able to find the actual original and official press release that Warner Brothers sent out to all the media outlets highlighting this seemingly amazing achievement. And I say seemingly because with the type of money that Warner Brothers invested in the movie in terms of production and marketing, it needed to make significantly more than $600 million just to break even, something that it clearly won't even do at this point. Now, as I've mentioned in the past, I have a background working within the entertainment industry, and I've worked in the past with major PR firms, so I'm aware of how they operate. And after reviewing it, to me it's clear that this press release from Warner Brothers was carefully crafted by a fancy marketing team of expensive publicity experts, the best that money can buy, with a clear goal of shaping the media narrative surrounding James Gunn's Superman in hopes that the public perceives it as a major victory for the studio. Before I had even dived into the press release itself, I already found it quite odd that it was sent out by Warner Brothers to all mainstream media outlets on Friday, August 22nd at 5:59 p.m. Eastern. Normally, that would pretty much be both the end of the day and the end of the work week for people, but since that was the day that Superman made its 600th millionth dollar at the box office, Warner Brothers, who I believe have been more nervous about Superman underperforming than they've let on until now, didn't want to wait, even for one more minute before frantically making this announcement. And for those of you wondering, well, what's wrong with them patting themselves on the back for getting $600 million at the worldwide box office? And while there's nothing wrong with that per se, it's also not exactly the biggest achievement of all time. Just this summer alone, Jurassic World Rebirth has already made over $850 million at the worldwide box office, which was exactly the type of numbers Warner Brothers were expecting from James Gunn's Superman, in spite of all of the spin that we're hearing right now. Even worse, James Gunn's Superman isn't expected to surpass the box office of Zack Snyder's Man of Steel from 2013, and that's even before we adjusted the numbers for inflation, which would be an even bigger embarrassment for both James Gunn and Warner Brothers. Now, let's look at what Warner Brothers wrote in the release itself, and keep in mind, whatever you see here is sort of a guideline that the studio is giving shills and major publications for what they would like to highlight in the press. And while it doesn't mean that every news site is going to parrot these exact talking points, it does usually help set a certain tone. So beyond the already cliched headline of Superman soaring to 600 million worldwide, you also have the release mention how the movie is powered by widespread critical praise and enthusiastic word of mouth. In reality, I think it's fair to say that at minimum, James Gunn's Superman is a divisive movie, certainly not the international consensus crowd pleaser that Warner Brothers were hoping for, so it's extra important for them to emphasize the exact opposite here, even if it really isn't true. The next order of business for this release is to highlight just how well this movie is doing internationally, not only in North America, but all around the world in overseas territories with quote-unquote strong showings in the UK and Mexico and Brazil and Australia, among other markets. Now, this statement clearly omits the many overseas markets where Superman bombed, because this is clearly an attempt to combat the narrative that Superman has underperformed internationally, which of course it has. Then you have a quote from Jeff Goldstein, president of Warner Brothers Pictures Global Distribution, who again mentions for the second time in 2 paragraphs just how great the word of mouth is for Superman. And this is in case anybody still wanted to claim that it was divisive, which it was. And then the cherry on the icing, you get a joint quote from DC Studios co-CEOs James Gunn and Peter Safran, who have basically interviewed themselves, and they also try to hit on those exact same talking points of positive reception and international success in the following statement.
We continue to be overwhelmed and inspired by the energy and enthusiasm of our magnificent global audience, and that spans not only longtime DC fans, but newcomers of every age worldwide who are discovering these seminal characters and their amazing universe for the first time.
So the big question is, if Warner Brothers is so pleased with the results of Superman, and it didn't underperform in any way, why would they desperately send this specific press release that tries so hard to sweep their mistakes under the rug on a Friday evening to all the mainstream media shills? It's almost as if Superman's box office results don't speak for themselves, and you have this whole PR spin being put together here. And the strange developments don't end here. In my previous video, I reported that on-demand digital streaming for Superman was considered a disappointment, and that the movie wasn't able to dominate the streaming charts as Warner Brothers had hoped. And some very generous people in the comments then told me that I was wrong and that I wasn't interpreting the information correctly, but no later than 24 hours after my report, Warner Brothers actually lowered the price of Superman for on-demand streaming on both Apple and Amazon, since it clearly was underperforming, as I had reported. And for those of you that are thinking, well, what's wrong with Warner Brothers lowering prices? And you know, if it happened 3 or 4 weeks after the initial digital release date, maybe I could accept that, but after 9 days? That again, much like the press release, seems like a desperate move. It's like on the one hand, Warner Brothers wants to tell you that James Gunn Superman is the best thing that ever happened to them, and behind the scenes, all they seem to be doing is trying to quickly and quietly minimize their losses after spending so much money on it. And I hope you're sitting down, because there's one more development that really helps complete this picture here. Right before the digital release of Superman, James Gunn and Warner Brothers released a behind-the-scenes documentary free to watch on YouTube called Adventures in the Making of Superman, on how the movie was made. Now, I can only assume that James Gunn had initially thought that this was a great documentary that would highlight what a great director he was, and it would encourage people to pay for streaming his movie, but that actually ended up backfiring, because the documentary shows Superman actor David Cornsweet correctly trying to explain to Gunn that some of his decisions for the Superman character don't quite make sense, and Gunn in turn just acts like a complete douche towards him. And once people started to discuss this on social media, the tide had turned against Gunn again. And do you know how Warner Brothers and James Gunn reacted to this criticism? Well, they ended up deleting the documentary. Now, maybe it's posted somewhere else online, but at the time of the making of this video that you're watching, the YouTube link to Gunn's Superman documentary is now set to private, and I wasn't able to locate it on any other Warner Brothers channel or DC channel. And I ask you again, if everything is going so great for Gunn and Warner Brothers, why would they delete this video? Why would they rush to lower Superman prices on streaming? And why would they send out a slippery press release on a Friday night? Now, if I had to give my 2 cents here, I believe it's because Warner Brothers is a company with significant debt. A lot was riding on this movie, and Warner CEO Zaslav wants to save face after personally hiring Gunn, which in my opinion was a mistake. And I believe Zaslav also wants to look good in front of his investors. Anyhow, just wanted to keep you posted with all the latest developments, and if you enjoy getting DCU updates like this one from an independent news channel like myself, please consider liking and subscribing, because any kind of support I could get would really mean a lot to me. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos. But I'm